So what happens when a country's debt starts to feed on itself? Today we're diving into a really dangerous economic trap known as the debt spiral.
What if I told you that entire countries are out there borrowing massive amounts of money?
But they're not using it to build anything new, not to invest in their future. Nope, they're borrowing just to pay the interest on the mountains of cash they already owe. It's basically like taking out a brand new credit card just to make the minimum payment on your old one.
Yep, that's what a debt spiral is. And believe me, once it gets going, it is incredibly difficult to stop.
All right, so let's break down what this trap really is. The key idea is right there in the name. It's a cycle where the debt literally starts to feed itself.
Here's the official definition for you. Now, the phrase to really hang on to here is simply to pay the interest. This isn't borrowing to invest or grow something, it's just borrowing to keep your head above water, to service the debt you already have. Your debt is now creating more debt, all on its own.
To really get this, let's scale it way down from huge nations to something we can all understand. A simple credit card.
Okay, picture this. You've got a $10,000 balance with a pretty nasty 20% interest rate. After a year, that's an extra $2,000 in interest you owe, but you don't have it. So what do? You borrow that $2,000, maybe from another card. Well, now your total debt is $12,000, and the next year, the interest is calculated on that new, bigger number. You see where this is going, right? The cycle just keeps repeating, and the debt just grows and grows.
And this chart, this is the heart of the problem. Your debt is shooting for the moon, while your income, your ability to actually pay, is staying flat. When that gap gets this wide, well, you're officially caught in the spiral.
Now, let's zoom back out. Because the exact same logic that traps a person with a credit card also applies to entire countries. It's just, with a lot more zeros at the end.
First things first, it's totally normal for governments to borrow money. I mean, they do it all the time to pay for huge projects like roads and bridges, to pay public employees, or just to cover a temporary budget shortfall. That kind of borrowing is usually healthy. The big difference here is between what we call productive and unproductive borrowing. Productive debt builds things. It creates future value. But unproductive debt? That's just a transaction. Money comes in and it goes right back out to pay old interest. Nothing new gets built. The hole just gets deeper.
And this is where things get really dangerous. A debt spiral isn't some stable situation. It's an accelerating one. It's designed to get worse over time, not better.
Think of it like a perfect storm. You've got these three things that make the whole spiral speed up. First, you have compound interest, which is like a constant wind, always pushing that debt number higher. Then, you get rising interest rates. That's like throwing fuel on the fire, making any more new borrowing even more expensive. And to top it off, a slowing economy means less tax money coming in to fight the problem.
This is the breaking point. This is where the math just stops working. I mean, if your national debt is growing by 10% a year, but your economy, the very engine that's supposed to pay for it, is only growing by 2%, that path is completely unsustainable. It's just a matter of time before something has to give.
So how do you spot this coming? Well, there are some pretty clear warning signs. You start to see government borrowing go up every single year. You see interest payments eating up a bigger and bigger slice of the national budget. And eventually, the people who lend the government money, the investors, they get nervous. They start demanding higher interest rates, which of course just makes the entire problem that much worse.
Okay, so once a country is actually caught in this trap, how do they get out? Well, getting out is incredibly hard. There are no easy answers, and every possible solution involves some really painful choices.
Let's try a simple analogy. Imagine the country's debt is just a snowball at the top of a big snowy hill.
As it starts to roll, it naturally picks up more snow, right? It gets bigger and faster all on its own. But now, imagine that hill suddenly gets much steeper. That's like your interest rates rising, or your economy slowing down. All of a sudden, that snowball is growing way faster than you can possibly control. That, right there, is a debt spiral in action.
So what are the options for stopping that giant snowball? Well, they're all tough. A government could raise taxes on everyone dramatically. They could make deep, painful cuts to public services like healthcare or education. They could just print more money, which almost always leads to crazy inflation. Or, in the worst-case scenarios, they could simply default, just refuse to pay, or go ask for a bailout from the international community.
And here's the brutal reality of the situation.
Every single one of those solutions causes real, actual economic pain for the people living in that country. There's just no easy way out.
So let's wrap this all up. A debt spiral is what happens when new borrowing is only being used to pay old interest. This causes the total debt to grow way faster than the economy can keep up. The bottom line? It's a dangerous trap where debt literally feeds itself.
And that leaves us with one last question to think about as you look at the world around you. When it comes to all this public debt, are we just looking at a manageable snowball, or is it starting to look more like an uncontrollable avalanche?